Can you hear me? Neither say something there. I want to check whether my earphones are working. Say something on Zoom. I want to hear if my earphones.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Mad?
Can one of you guys say something? Christina, Uli, or...
Hello, I'm here.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Again?
Can you all mute the mics, please?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the Embodied Arts Festival, where we went through right now the theatre play Ascension, Intimate Bodies and Forbidden Stories, directed by Dr. Maiada Aboud. It has been an outcome of a durational project about gender, femininity, and menstruation, with the project participants of Antonia Führ, Christina, Gabriela, Halli, Trinks, and Uli Pilwax. Maiada, how are you feeling?
Yeah, good, thank you.
How are you feeling after seeing this today?
Sorry, could you repeat again?
How are you feeling after seeing the performance today?
It's very weird because all the tension that has been going on through the performance itself and the making comes back to you at one point, and like you start questioning everything behind the project and how do the participants connect and the motivation and why do we do what we do. So hopefully later on I will let the participants comment.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining with us today, Dr. Maiada Aboud. And would you like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and about how did you arrive into directing these theatre plays?
Okay, so my journey has been over 17 years old. I actually started by painting and have came into the performance journey as one of my teachers at Haifa University discovered this energy in me, and he directed me into taking this path. Funny enough, it has been throughout my divorce, and I had all this anger in me and all this pain. So my performance journey has helped me to voice this. And throughout the whole procedure, this mechanism has proved itself as a productive mechanism, and that's why, and that's how I came to taking this path into directing projects that are involving community and trying to influence and affect others the way my art affected me personally.
Thank you. Apart from Dr. Maiada Aboud, who has been with us at Oyoun today, we are lucky to have Christina, Uli, and Maria joining us from their spaces. Would you like to introduce yourself, Christina?
Yes. I'm Christina, and I'm living in Berlin and finishing my master, actually. And I'm also like doing a lot with performance, theater, and dance. And like the main concern is always, or the main point is always body, going from body as a social or material thing. Depends on which project I'm working on. Yeah.
Uli.
Hey, yes, my name is Uli. I go by he or they. And yes, I'm. What is maybe important for this piece is I was born and raised in a Catholic and white privileged family in Austria. And yes, also do a lot of dancing, performing, and theater works. And I'm very new to Berlin, and a friend proposed me that performance piece, the theater project, which was very funny. And maybe I will come later on that, elaborate later on that.
Sure. Thank you. And Maria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Maria. I'm an actor and a performance artist, theater maker, member of the Thesmophoria collective here in Berlin. And Yeah, I'm originally Dutch, also Catholic, white privileged background, but from a different generation than Uli, which also played a part for me, especially in this project. Yeah, so.
Nice to hear how you have been really eager to say more about things that you have about the project. So, Dr. Maiada Aboud, how would you like to define your project?
Okay. Before defining the project, I want to accredit Antonia, which is one performer in this project as well. She is of an Iranian background, and she is based in Berlin as well. Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
No, but that's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Antonia couldn't join us today, so it's. Yeah, I would like to know, like, how would you define the Ascension project that you have been working with us for like over last 4 months, 5 months, I think so, almost.
Yeah, so this project has been really interesting for me personally because I come from my endurance journey, and since I arrived to Berlin, I was trying to get engaged with a community project, and I've auditioned 15 different women from various cultural backgrounds. And obviously, my perception of pain and menstruation and femininity and gender issue are more related to the cultural, religious, political structure from which I come. And to start with, it has been different than the white supremacist point of view. But throughout the auditioning process, while talking to those women and addressing various topics that we touched upon, I came to know that pain is a common theme or common issue for most of the women I spoke to, and each woman had really like strong experience, or each person, because they're not all women, had a different pain and hard stories to tell, whether it's physical, verbal, sexual abuse, and stories that are really hard to communicate. And throughout the project, we've been touched. Like, the more I spoke to them, the more we connected on this level of pain, and how do we communicate it and how do we share it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. But can you see each other?
So, as I said earlier, the project started on a personal level, and then it moved to finding common language with other people who shared my pain and those issues surrounding menstruation and femininity in general. And the more I dived into this topic, the more I realized that for us all, or like those who bleed, or whether you identify as what you've been born to accept or accommodate, or whether you don't identify with your born identity, you always have this social, religious, and political pressure for you to not really, like, always conform, not divert from this path. And the more you identify with a different type of identity, the more you struggle and the more pain you will have. So this was.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a complex setup, right? Yeah, I always keep looking back at you here and there. It's like I'm speaking to two Dr. Maiada.
Yeah, this setup is a bit schizophrenic, but we will have to deal with it and produce the best, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really curious about how the project developed over the few months, about the workshops that happened, the auditions that you had with over 15 participants, right? Would you like to say a little bit about the auditions that you had and the experiences with those auditions? Before I would like to also know from Christina and Maria and Uli more about their auditions probably.
Yeah, so following the auditioning period, we kind of were supposed to step into the workshop space and work together as like physically together. And that was actually a main, throughout the pandemic, that was like a main challenge for us all. And I think my performers have also struggled as much as I did to find a common like an alternative route or mechanism to work with the pandemic or around the pandemic. And this has been really challenging because I think we managed to do it regardless of the tension that has been accompanying us. I think for me, I mean, the performance could speak as well for themselves afterwards. But for me, it has been really, really an interesting and exciting experience to see the performers as well, and the way they deal with their body and other the other performers' body in space throughout the shooting, and how do we sympathize and acknowledge pain in general and reflect on what others go throughout in this durational performance journey.
Uli, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to say how did you connect and with when you learned about when we were releasing the open call to kind of connect with as a community project to work with different participants? How did you connect and like reach out? What made you being part of this project?
You mean how do we connect? How did I connect technically or
no? How? Yes, emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was funny because I was new to Berlin and a friend proposed it to me, and it was like, yeah, it's like I read about menstruation and pain and ooh shit. I kind of very much liked to detour this topic in the past. And for me, it was a really good challenge to deal with it anew and in a creative way. And also for me, it was kind of interesting to engage in a group with different genders, and also the question about who is in the group, how do we all engage with which experiences, which feelings onto the topic, what are our commonalities and our differences at the same time. This was very valuable for me.
Right.
To listen to all these different stories and how they deal with that kind of functional thing, right? But society is constructing so much on this topic, and it's I think it's very funny.
Right. Yes, that is what we have been trying to explore here. Like, how do we deal with our experiences, daily experiences, everyday performances? And Christina, can you hear us? Christina, yes. Would you like to say how was your process during this project? How did it start for you?
So the process started with a phone. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, I hear you.
Okay, with a phone call with Maiada, where she asked me a lot of questions, and the questions weren't so easy to respond. Actually, I found them pretty deep, and also like on different issues. But I felt kind of safe responding the questions because I felt and I still feel that Maiada is really like very concerned about the subject, actually, like honestly, and also very like sincerely connected to yes, to political issues. So I was like confident sharing it.
Thank you. And Maria, for you?
Yeah, well, I found out about this project through Facebook, and I had the same as Christina, long conversation with Maiada. For me, this project has it has so many aspects because it's very personal, because it's very physical, as Uli as well said. You have your period and blood comes out of your body, and but yet there's this whole society that puts all these things on us. And I've lived in different countries, so I've had different experiences in different countries as well. And also for me, it's very personal because I'm almost at the end of my living with my period. So there is also a very emotional thing, personal for me. It was very difficult because of the pandemic. I think if we would have been able to meet in real life and do a physical workshop together, it would have been, amazing. But the last day where we actually filmed our performances was fantastic, because we finally got to see each other performing, and there was a beautiful focus and concentration. So I'm glad we got to experience that at least. And I really hope we can do this live. So we can really get that feeling that we have and give that also to a live audience.
Yes, that's definitely true. Due to the current circumstances, how to like, Maida, how did you deal with this process of speaking about performance art and the how to connect with the audience? Would you like to say how was the process for you?
Well, I can clearly say that on top of the natural enduring journey with your own body, you have to endure the pandemic as well. So all in all, it becomes a complete full endurance mechanism where we have to tackle and handle everything. And part of the struggle was not being able for like the fact that bodies are not able to communicate around each other safely the way it used to be pre-pandemic, and the way the alternatives and the tricks you find around it. Like every time you try to physically meet, there is a corona case, there is corona risk, you try to avoid physical contact, which is basically is the current struggle for performers in general. And that's where I think the core of this challenge was to still find a way to communicate around and added taboos and boundaries that you have to jump over and into producing what you're meant to produce. once you decided to do it. So I think for us all, and Antonia on top of my participants as well, who is not here today, we managed to create or find this bond at the end of this journey, where we, I think, managed to connect despite the physical distance, but even within the performance itself live, when it happened eventually, we kind of felt each other's emotionally, and we really identified with each other's bodies. And throughout this numbness or hardship, or when Uli banged or smashed the eggs, and we kind of felt this physical touch, even though it didn't happen on stage. At least that's how I see it personally.
Right. Like the main topics around the project, one of them being the taboos around menstruation and equality and social change, and how you call them the forbidden stories. Would you like to tell us a little bit more on your research?
Yeah, so the forbidden stories for me is really like the most sensitive aspect within my practice, because to reflect on my background, I was born Palestinian and among the minorities. So I was born on top of that Christian and a woman. So I had to travel a long journey to kind of step beyond my born identity into being or identifying as a fluid person. Whether it's my gender identity, political identity, or national identity, even though I don't have a national identity, but yeah, to find how do I deliver and pass the pain inside me, and the political struggle on top, having to be Palestinian and living under the Israeli occupation as well. So for me, my performance journey got to its peak when I started delivering the message from the margin somehow, and funny enough, that's where I connected to my body more as a home. And that's where I found myself when I stepped out of my shell, out of this box where I was supposed to identify with, whether it's religious, political, or social. I would clearly as well say that within all the artistic approaches, the physicality or the performative aspect as well has helped me the most to kind of always bounce in and out, because even with all the restrictions, I can still revisit home and perform in some places where I could be heard and hopefully affect others as well. And influence them the way I was influenced throughout my practice.
Thank you. I would like to ask Uli, all of you actually, where did your interest in like performance art come from, and how would you relate that to your cultural background? Uli, would you like to respond on that first?
Mm-hmm. My interest in performative art simply, when I think back to childhood, it simply derives from, I think, being able to express stress in the body. I can remember it very much was related to play with myself, like, and when I think back, it's pretty much, I think I compensated a lot of bodily stress at the time. And yes, more and more I through, for example, the queer feminist communities, I was politicized in Austria. Also got more into the performance scene, and I realized what is possible and what is cherished, which bodily physical expressions, and how can I self-heal in this bodily expression, and also living new realities in myself, but also outside of my body, like the societal body. That was very important to me.
And Christina or Maria?
Yeah, for me, it's been, well, I mean, I've been on stage since I was very, very young. It's always been, yeah, my passion. I have been pushed into another career, but theater and performing has always been my side career. And recently, the last 10 years, I've been a full-time artist. But it's always been there. I've always wanted to tell stories, entertain, educate, train. I think for me, theater or performance or drama as a way to express yourself, yeah, it's very important. And I believe it can be very, like Uli said, healing. It can teach you a lot. It can teach other people a lot. So yeah, it's a very important part of my life and has always been an important part of my life.
Christina?
Difficult question. I think I'm just interested in a whole experience. I think if you don't live it with your body, also with your mind, but it's actually the same. But if you don't live it entirely, you don't understand it. At least I understand things better this way. I think this is the kind of very intuitive interest in it. But afterwards, for performance, really, always when I do public work, I really have to have a big intention to say something. It's pretty different than just practicing it or making workshops or, yeah, like planning a performance is always like, I want to share something really deeply with someone else or a lot of someone else. Yeah.
And then coming from those different perspectives, from all the different perspectives, how was it working with each other and throughout the entire process? How did these perspectives come together?
For me, like, part of the people who didn't end up taking part in this project, kind of, some of them drop out because they were craving physical contact, which was hard at one point to happen. I think throughout the play and the auditioning process itself and talking and communicating with each other's, like, once the physical aspect happened for all of us, it was already a step, like, beyond what we already expected into the healing process. That's how I see it. And reflecting on what Christina said, that the therapy of being affecting and being affected by others throughout the performance itself.
the question that we received was, were four performances, all the four performances, jointly developed, or was it rather a set of four individual processes?
It was, the mechanism was that I forwarded a list of ready-made objects that the performers had to use and work around. And I reflected on those items they've used and personally handed according to the auditions themselves as well. Maybe sometimes I saw something as too personal for one of them, so I handed the task for another one in order not to be really emotional or really, even though they could see the pain, their pain going or projected throughout another person. For example, Uli's piece. He doesn't identify as a woman, but I still gave him those eggs to smash. It's all debating around the personal struggle, but not personally relating on stage. So I kind of circulated those tasks around for all of us to kind of identify and work physically around. And then I passed those 6 exercises where each one of them, sometimes I gave the opportunity to choose, other times I saw someone doing something and then I said, or I kind of voiced my preferred performance, and that's how we worked around it.
Okay, that's interesting, and I'm really curious to learn now, like how, like when you said that you made choices of the materials to be used, or the way to represent, like with the eggs for Uli. How was that, Uli, for you when that came from Maiada? Would you rather? How was it for you to deal with that choice that time?
It was like still a choice between 6 settings, between 6 stories. So I could have detoured it, but for me it was pretty much it was fitting. Like I interpreted the X. You can, of course, you can interpret it differently. For me, the X, it was relieving to smash ovaries, for example. That's how what I made out of it. And to, at the same time, not be essentializing bleeding on a gender. That was very important for me, for example. So yeah.
Right. And like, how was it like when you actually did it? Like, how was the experience?
That's a good question. Because yeah, at the moment on the stage, when you record it, so much stuff in the brain, in the body goes on. It was kind of, it was disturbing, but also relieving at the same time. And for me, it was also a gentle distracting, like petting the ex before and, so to say, saying goodbye to these ovaries and saying goodbye to rather societal constructions on my body, because it's for me it's like biology, and at the other side it's what society makes out of it. So it was, yeah, it was quite of a tension, and this also felt this tension while I smash them.
Was it a form of release?
It was a release, yes.
Yeah, I would like to elaborate that this mechanism is on its own. The way she described it is that the tension, he described it, the tension he felt on stage, and as well the therapeutical mechanism that kind of is felt at the same time. And that's the layers I really hoped we reach, like, as performers.
Yes, speaking of performance, when you're also trying to connect to an audience, what kind of audience do you think this kind of project, that was the type of audience that was thought for?
I would, when I started, it was kind of a narrower audience where I hoped to address people coming from cultures where I came from. Like, it was narrowed down to influencing other Arab women because my surrounding was, or my story, personal story, was mainly affected by my society. But then traveling along and moving to different cultures, then the targeted audience expanded. And now that this project mainly, I hope to address anybody with pain, and mainly those who bleed and those who can't talk about something that is supposedly one of the most natural things that we're born with, which has become a taboo to debate and talk. And that's, like, for me, the most surreal aspect of our society in general, where I was born to bleed and I can't even talk about my period. When you have pain, you can't talk about your pain. So this play is a play addressing mostly people who have this struggle or have pain and can't communicate it, whether it's menstruation or abuse. It's trying to touch all those dark corners of your identity where you're not even allowed to travel or reach.
And while you said about these taboos again, it reminded me about about the verbal communication that is embedded in our culture and how we deal with that every day. And would you like to say how you have been connecting that with your performance and our other work?
It's a very interesting question because my plays normally are not verbal at all.
Exactly, that's why.
So I think that mechanism kind of reflects or debates itself by itself. So this surreal aspect of not being able to communicate verbally reflects on the restrictions around the lack of verbal communication in general. So at least those performances allowed those women to verbalize the things that they were not allowed to voice. So that takes me back into performance as being a therapeutical or a healing concept, because once you travel beyond the verbal communication, I think that's when you reach a deeper side of your character, and that's when things become emotional rather than like verbal. I think there is much more layers, tension and strength to the message in general.
And Christina, how would you relate to that with your work art, performance art, communication?
Always the difficult question. No.
I mean, you can ask each other. You have been also during the workshops that you have gone through in the last few weeks, and like there's also, I think when we are in a physical space doing workshops, also sometimes silence is also like there is a communication, but when you're doing it online also, and it's very different, you know, and the process, like you could reflect through the process, or you could reflect through your work of art.
I think to use words to understand each other is very complicated. I think it doesn't work a lot. For real.
I think Christina was the one who was always keen on having physical or performative aspects, but rather not verbal. So I think choosing her on this one was really...
I think this is the answer. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean that's what it is. How are we dealing with these things? Yeah, thank you. I think that was okay.
Yes, I have also
Go for it.
something to say. Maybe which also has to do with my cultural background and also this colonial stuff, that it's so much about words in this society here. So much of verbalizing, always having the need to articulate and verbalize, and that these kind of performances without words very nourishing to articulate in another way. Yeah, that was important, because I often struggle with words, as you may witness at the moment.
No, but it's good. It's good. It's good for real.
So it's very exhausting often to have to find words. And,
yeah, I think that's the beauty of performance, no, and using your body and not to have to always use the articulated and constructed words. Then you can really use your senses in communicating, and that's the true beauty of performance art. Sometimes I feel. Yes, and as you said about healing, and you said about nourishing, and that's something I felt like through all the struggles that you all have gone through. Also, there is a collective healing process. Sometimes it's possible through also doing all, not necessarily verbally. And how would you like to continue this? Because this has been a project that has been growing, right, for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think I want to take the auditions further, because I realized that throughout those 15 auditions, there was like loads of rich materials and things that I really want to still touch upon. And hopefully soon those corona tests and the regulation around it, it's becoming as a pattern. So maybe it will help us to kind of travel towards each other's bodies more and more. And I would still as well like to collaborate with the performers I've collaborated with throughout Ascension. I think I definitely want to take this further into different places as well. I want us all to be live together on stage, and maybe getting closer to each other's bodies and building this of where the suffering or the endurance mechanism kind of unites us and kind of builds a more solid structure than more than 4 cubes presented on the screen. Because the way I see it is that the live aspect as it is now, or at least the live aspect that exists and the physicality that exists within live performances in general, it has been there for us when we performed in space, but some of this concept kind of unfortunately tends to get lost when this type of performances performances are projected on screen, and the spectator or the viewer is not really physically there and reflecting and touching and feeling the energy in space. So yes, so mainly into 2 different paths. One is more physical and more collaborative and taking my performers onward with this project, and writing about, like maybe writing an article about those auditions anonymously, or reflecting on all the pain and the struggle I kind of felt throughout the auditions, because the auditions themselves were really, really, really hard to listen to. And I'm really glad that those people managed to and allowed me to have the pleasure and to share this with them when they opened up and spoke to me. And at some points I really felt emotional, because even addressing them, I wasn't at times thinking that they will put the cards on the table and open up their dark corners the way they did. So I really am appreciative for each one of those 15 people, and especially to the performers with me now tonight.
Thank you. And thinking about reflections, I would like to also ask Maria about what would be your reflections from this journey? And I remembered also, you said one of the things that the older participants, and how it kind of also brought that perception kind of brought into your development of this, your piece as well, right?
Yeah, because when we first started out on individually sending videos to Maiada, and from those videos, I think the stories were developed. And then I kind of got the story with the chicken liver and the blood. And for me, especially when I was doing the performance on stage, the bowl that I had next to me was getting really empty. So it was like I have to grab my last period almost, like this is my last. And I was like really holding on to it. So I became very emotional during the performance. And I mean, in general, period, even here and nowadays, it's not something we talk about a lot, and especially not when I was young. And we don't talk about the pain, but we also don't talk about the pain at the moment that you don't have your period anymore and you're not fertile anymore and you can't be pregnant, or, even though I don't want to be pregnant, but it's just going to stop. So it was kind of very, healing, or in a way for me, very good to process that part of my life. Like, okay, this is the end of my fertile life now, and I'm reaching for my last periods. And so in the end, even though that story wasn't the story I started with, which was probably more the one that Uli ended up with, really connected with me as well. So I think that's the beauty of this performance, that everybody, even though the stories got twisted around, everybody can in a way connect to that story. And I connected to it because my bowl was ending, but maybe somebody else connected to it because of all the blood or the pain, or because there are so many aspects. And that's why I also think it's so I mean, I'm okay with talking, but I just love the fact that we didn't speak. And we didn't speak almost when we were recording the whole day. It was very intense, and yeah.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I wanted as well to reflect upon the testimonies that we've been posting on social media, where reflecting on what Maria has said, that we kind of circulated the stories where like she originally started with the eggs, but then I saw that, okay, maybe I'll move her personal pain into someone else and let them handle this burden in a way or another, that like to check how would they handle this and what would they feel. And something else that I would really like to dive in as well, for example, Maria wrote poems and other people as well produced different materials, which unfortunately we were not, and according, like following the pandemic, we were not so far we haven't been able to use and produce those materials and take them on board. But yeah, thank you, Maria, for bringing this up. Yeah, so maybe in the future, and once, like the more we travel with this, we can accommodate all the things that we managed to kind of come up with.
Would there be any other like reflective thoughts of the process from you all during the journey? And I really appreciate, Maria, to say that today also, that the day of the performance, that how the intensity, the difference, that you don't need to really speak. And also today, while we are sitting and trying to discuss this, it is solely to kind of connect to other people who are also going through the same thing probably, and would like to learn from you how you deal with it. And this I hope that we all reflect and connect with all the different perspectives that you brought in today. Thanks a lot for that. And I would love to know if you have any more reflections that you'd like to share with us today.
Yeah, for me, it's just, I hope this will continue, and that yeah, we get to share in a form about all the pain, and that it can be, yeah, not with words maybe, but even connect through physical theater performances. That yeah, that's what I hope, the people who watch this, or if we continue, that there will be more people connecting to this and feel safe to share as well.
Thank you. Yes. And Christina?
I think I just felt the subject, or the subjects, are very vast. So we can do a lot. We can. It is just like a little beginning or something. It's like really big, the subject. And thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Uli?
Yeah, I also share these thoughts from Christina, that you can see on it, feel on it, on the whole spectrum of intersectionality. And we just started. And I would be also interested to exchange with people and who bleed or wish to bleed, who were brought up in another cultural context than I was. That would be very interesting to me, to have this exchange even more. And thank you, Maiada, and to Oyoun for having this space, and to all of you, Antonia, Maria, and Christina.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to thank each one of you, and like with all the pressure we faced throughout this day, and we today. Energy and everything you dropped into this, and I hope our bond carries on further beyond this project.
Would you like to reflect back on the fact that it's just the beginning, as Christina said?
Well, as everything in life, there is a beginning and there is an end, and hopefully nothing would stop us other than death. So as long as we breathe and we chose the art to as a journey, we can always produce with pain or without pain. It's a mechanism that at least I can, out of my personal experience, I can say it's really effective. So I hope other people could see this effectiveness the way I see it. And I would like to finish by wishing peace to all bodies, non-verbal peace and existence, and safe journey regardless of gender issues, politics, and religion.
Yes, same here. I also would like to wish everybody love your own body, love everybody, and thank you everyone to join us and learn about our processes, learn about our journey, and we hope to wish you all that we keep continuing on this path together.
Thank you, Mad, for the effort throughout this project. And I finally want to thank Oyoun for allowing us to work on this project.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It has been a really nice evening, connecting and reflecting with the participants of Ascension. And yes, and wish you all a good evening. Thank you.